Hi, I'm Deborah Herman, and I'm with TV Classics Press. We are very excited to add a brand new author to our list and to I'm a fangirl, and so I'm really excited to be talking today with Kathy Garver. You will remember her from many, many things. Some of us who are TV Classics nerds, I am self-admitted to be so. We will also remember her from Family Affair. Welcome to Kathy.
Well, thank you, Deborah. I'm very excited to talk to you. And I feel for you in the snow back.
I know.
And I feel a little guilty that I'm sitting in my sunshine that's pouring through the window today.
Yeah, I am jealous. But I'm also excited. I'm excited to talk with you. You really have done so many things. Now, of course, I'm a fan of Family Affair, but you've actually been acting since you were very young. What was your first role?
One of my first roles was in The Night of the Hunter, which had a stellar cast. It was with Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters and Lillian Gish. And it was the first movie that one of the directors had ever done, Charles Laughton. He had been known as a wonderful actor. And this was his first directorial debut. And unfortunately, he never directed another picture after this because it got such awful reviews.
Whoa.
And the reason that it got, awful reviews was that it was way before its time. And it since became one of the top 100 films that have ever been made in the horror genre. And because it was so scary, it was done in a black and white, kind of in German impressionist kind of form. And it was so haunting, and the reviewers didn't know what to make of it. But then they realized all the different symbolism and the adaptation from the original book by Davis Grubb. And then it became just fabulous. So it was a really good entree for me. So I went from this horror film to doing the 10 Commandments. So it was really kind of a switch.
No, we'll get to that. But before you move away from, it was called Night of the Hunter.
Right.
And first of all, I think it's interesting because it seems like most actresses or actors start in horror.
Oh, is that interesting? And this was, long time ago.
Scary.
And it was like in the 50s. I hate to say how long ago.
No.
I was a very small child.
You're 20. Yeah, you were in the womb at the time.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I wonder, of course, as a child, you would not have been aware of the people in the cast and what luminaries they were. Later in life, when you realized it, how did you feel that was your first film?
Well, my mother knew. And, and it was apparent that they were the stars, because they had chairs with their names on it, and they got to go to these wonderful makeup rooms and dressing rooms. So I thought that was pretty cool. And they had memorized all these lines. And from the very first day when I went in there, and we were in this hiding in the cellar, and all of a sudden the stairs go down and there are all these things clacking around us, and it was so dramatic that I was aware of something really big happening, and indeed it was.
I'm just wondering, I know this is kind of digressing and we've got so much to talk about, but we're going to continue and do this again. But as a child actor, how did you're not a reader yet. How did they direct you so that you are able to be part of that fluid scene? I know you must have had some natural ability, and was it scary for you?
It was exciting for me because that was the first time I had really been on a movie set, and I was just taking it all in. But I was 8 playing a 6-year-old. So
you were 8 already.
And I had started reading when I was like 5 and 6.
Or again, in the womb.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Thank you, Mrs. Frye. You are my new best friend. And Charles Laughton had a way with people, and he knew what he wanted. And I remember we were drifting down this make-believe river, and I was with now I forget his name, Billy Chapin, who is Lauren Chapin's brother from Father Knows Best.
Father Knows
and
Best.
He was the star. He was the little boy star. And we're in this, this little skiff going down the river. And I remember Laughton saying, okay, why are you putting your head down? Keep your head up. Look where you're going. See going down the river. And so I had been taking dancing lessons since I was 3. So I followed directions. This is the way you do the tap step. Okay, now put your left foot down, now shuffle, now put your right foot down and shuffle. And so you listen. So I was a good listener. So I did what I was told. That's what you can most likely do, but with my own spirit and heart that any actor puts in there.
Wow. It's so interesting to think about the behind the scenes. So if you're supposed to be going down a river, what are you actually doing?
We're going down a pretend river. So we're on a great big set, and they build it like, I don't know if you ever did this in science. I did this with my son. We built these little volcanoes, and we built, Alcatraz on a, 14-inch by 14-inch thing. So they built the shore, and then they built a place where the river would go, like you would do a fountain today, or you would put like the
miniature.
So yeah, it was and this is kind of interesting to me. And this was another reason, because there were a lot of different things that they were able to incorporate into this movie, that because people didn't have special effects.
Right.
But they wanted to have an effect of this really strange murdering preacher that they're following the kids down the river. And they wanted to have a perspective of him being further away or closer. So what they did, and the lighting was dark, instead of using a horse, they used a mule, and they used a double of a little person that was emulating Robert Mitchum, in the same garb.
Oh.
So it looked like it was big, but it was, and that's the way that they made that effect.
Interesting. That's like in painting when you're doing perspective, try to get that effect of something. Wow, that's really fascinating. And then your next film was The 10 Commandments, which of course is such an amazing, now I have to watch it for the 900th time so I can see you. And what was that like?
Well, and talking about like special effects, which they didn't have then, and I think that some of the effects that they used then were more real than any of the green screen that you're going to see today. And they stuck to the story. Of course, they had a good story to begin with the Bible. But, some of these special effect movies just don't have the story. They just have the special effects.
You mean he didn't actually part the Red Sea?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to know how they did that effect. That was amazing.
They used Jello because it shook along either side. And they used miniature like soldiers. And then those were some of the effects. And then they had us like on paper mache mountains. I have this long story. We should do just a 10
We are. We're going to do. I'm writing this down. We're going to do nothing but the 10 Commandments.
You can edit it, and if you want me to tell the story, it's kind of a long story.
Yeah. All right. This. We were going to talk about some other things, but today we're going to talk about your early films. Kathy Garver, we know you from Family Affair, but what people don't realize is you had a whole interesting career as a child actor before you ever became that teenage crush for probably most of the young men around at the time, gorgeous, Cissy. But yeah, I want to hear about 10 Commandments. That's, we're getting into March, and then of course, right around April is when they play that movie again. And so were you in many of the scenes or?
Well, I was first just supposed to be an extra among the hordes of extra. And I went to the set, it was at Paramount, and they had built a little village and they were starting right for the Exodus. I was to be in a wagon holding this little lamb. And so I got my assignment, and I'm sitting there and holding the lamb. And, we started everything. And then all of a sudden, I hear this big voice and it says, "Don't let that little girl's face get in the camera." And I said, "Who is that?" I said, "Is that God?" We were commandments. And so turned out it wasn't God, but this big cinematic deity that was Cecil B. DeMille, who is the great director. So the associate director came over, he put a little blanket on, and he said, "Well, you're still going to do this scene." I said, "Okay." After the scene was over, they came and got me. I talked to DeMille, and he wrote scenes into the movie for me.
Oh,
and with Charlton Heston.
He didn't want you in that scene.
He didn't want my face to show in that particular scene because he wanted to use me someplace else.
That's
and
exciting.
with as a principal and with lines and everything, which he did. So he assigned me my lines, and I did a scene, and then I did another scene when the Red Sea is closing with Charlton Heston. It also revolves around a doll, Rebecca. So anyway, now Cecil B. DeMille is setting up the great big scene, of the Red Sea closing. They enhanced it with miniatures and special effects with the Jello and everything. So this had taken him days to do. And there were oxen and camels and everybody going through the Red Sea. And I was on a paper mache mountain that I was supposed to, when he yelled, "Action," climb up into the arms of Nina Foch, who was sitting in a niche there. So there was a great big catwalk with all these vats of water set up on the catwalk. And when he called action, that was to simulate the water coming down the closing of the Red Sea. Now, because this took such a long time to set up, he used 3 cameras. So they used one camera to get the whole panorama. And then he used another camera to get another angle of the shot. And then, just to be sure, he put another little cameraman way back up on the catwalk near the water. So finally everything is done. I know what I'm supposed to do. All the extras go through and they know what they're supposed to do, and the donkey. So he says, "Action." And I go to my place and they go through and the water comes down, and it was great. He says, "Cut." He says, "Great. Camera number 1, how was it for you?" And the cameraman said, "Mr. DeMille, I am so sorry, but a camel walked in front of the lens and I didn't get the shot." He said, "You didn't get the shot?" He said, I am so sorry, Mr. DeMille." Mr. DeMille was not very happy about this.
I bet he wasn't.
He wasn't at all. But
I wouldn't like to be that cameraman.
No, but there was the other cameraman that was getting it from the other angle. But and DeMille said, "Well, how was it for you?" And he said, "Mr. DeMille, I am so sorry, but water splashed on the lens and I didn't get the shot." "You didn't get the shot?" "No, sir." Well, DeMille was just beside himself. All this money, all this time, it was brilliant, and then he didn't get the shot. But then he remembered he had the
third guy on the catwalk.
Right. And so he says, "Oh, thank God." And so he says, "Camera number 3, how was it for you?" And the cameraman yelled back at him, "Ready when you..."
Oh no. So they
It's
didn't get the shot at all.
They didn't get the shot. That's a true story. That's a true story, Deborah. And do you know that they wrote a little play about Ready When You Are, CB? And it's kind of based on this story. Apocryphal, no. Real, yes. So that really happened. And I was
Did he there. I'm surprised you didn't have an aneurysm, God forbid.
Oh, I know, the poor thing. Well, it's tough being a director, so.
Well, then I feel better because last night I flooded my floor. I left the sink on and it flooded my bathroom floor and it went down into the kitchen. Now I feel better because that's really, what?
Did it freeze?
No. It was my fault.
So you had the heater on.
It was really my fault.
So it's all cold outside. But.
No, it was totally my fault. I was going to clean something and I blocked the sink. I poured some fluid in there just to get a rag and forgot to turn it off all the way. And just speaking about water, and then it flooded. but now I don't feel bad because at least I wasn't one of those cameramen.
I know. I don't know what happened to them. They could have been replaced.
Anyway, that's a wonderful story. And so from there, we're going to continue and do another interview with you. But so from there, just to give a timeline, you did a couple of other films, and then at some point, which we're going to talk about in our next interview, at some point you were cast as Cissy. And what we're really excited about is I did say that Kathy is now going to be one of our authors, and I'm really excited. We're going to just give you a little teaser. You might be able to see behind Kathy right now are some papers and images. That's because we're working on a brand new scrapbook, one of our famous TV Classics Press pictorial memoirs of Family Affair with a lot of Kathy's memories. And boy, are you guys, you're going to be thrilled because we've got images and memorabilia and all these kinds of things going in the book. And of course, what we're also going to talk about in our next interview will be the other books that Kathy already has written. We want to tell you about them. One of them is going to be released again this spring. And we'll tell you, just watch our Facebook page. We're launching our new website. And stay tuned for more with Kathy Garver. Any last words, Kathy?
Well, I'm very excited about this whole pictorial Family Affair scrapbook coming together. And I made a wonderful discovery just yesterday and found a whole new box with Family Affair pictures and puzzles and all the kinds of things that were made for Family Affair itself. It was one of the first years that they got into merchandising. And they did a lot of merchandising. So I'm so happy that we're going to be able to include that in our new book.
I don't know about other fangirls or fanboys, but when you talk about that stuff, I palpitate. I'm like, I want to see it. I want to see it. So Kathy, thank you so much for being with me today. TV Classics Press, our little podcast, and welcome to the family. And
thank you.
We will be seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you so much.